Welcome to a night you'll never forget. The rain is falling, heavy and relentless, drowning the world in shadows. But it's not just water out there. Something moves in the storm. Something ancient. Something hungry. Tonight, we're plunging into 7 true horror stories. Real accounts from ordinary people who face the unimaginable on dark, rainy nights. These tales will crawl into your mind, make you question every creak, every raindrop that taps your window. So lock your doors, pull your curtains tight, and turn off the lights. We're stepping into the abyss, and there's no turning back. Before we dive in, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button and smack the bell icon so you never miss a story. That'll haunt your dreams. And in the comments, I want to hear your story. Have you ever seen something in the rain? Something that made your heart stop, your blood freeze? Share it below, because tonight, you're not alone. Or maybe you are. Let's find out. This is going to be a long, terrifying journey, so grab a blanket, maybe a friend, and brace yourself. We're diving into the first story, and it's going to grip you like the cold hand of fear itself. Story 1. The Hitchhiker in the Rain. Our journey begins in rural Ohio, November 2017. It was a night swallowed by rain, a storm so fierce it felt alive, clawing at the world with icy fingers. Emily, a 24-year-old nurse, was driving home after a grueling 12-hour shift at the county hospital. Her old sedan rattled, the wipers struggling against the deluge, their screeching like a scream in the dark. The radio hissed with static, spitting garbled voices that sounded wrong, like whispers from somewhere else. The road was a black void, stretching endlessly, and Emily was fighting to keep her eyes open. Exhausted, her hands tight on the wheel, Emily felt a strange unease. It wasn't just the storm. It was a weight, heavy and suffocating, like the air was watching her. Then, her headlights caught something. A figure stood on the roadside, barely visible through the torrent. A woman, motionless, thumb outstretched. Her long hair was plastered to her face, her clothes soaked and tattered, clinging to her like a second skin. She looked broken, like she'd been standing there for hours, maybe days, untouched by time. Emily's stomach churned. She knew picking up hitchhikers was dangerous, especially on a night like this, in the middle of nowhere. Her mind screamed to keep driving, to leave the figure behind in the rain. But her heart, her damn foolish heart, couldn't ignore the woman's desperation. She slowed down, cracking the window just enough to call out, "You okay?" The woman didn't speak at first, just stared, her eyes locked on Emily's, unblinking, like they could see through her. Then, in a voice so soft it was nearly drowned by the storm, she said, "Can you take me to Millville?" That was the next town, about 15 miles away. Emily hesitated, her gut twisting, but she unlocked the passenger door. The woman climbed in, bringing a wave of cold, damp air that seemed to seep into Emily's bones. She said her name was Claire. Her voice was strange, flat, hollow, like it echoed from somewhere far away. She smelled wrong, too. Not just wet clothes, but something deeper, like damp earth, rotting leaves, and something sour, like decay. Emily gripped the wheel tighter, her knuckles white, trying to focus on the road. Claire sat silently, water pooling at her feet, her hands folded in her lap. They were so pale they almost glowed, her nails jagged and black, like they'd been clawed at something. Emily tried to fill the silence, her voice shaky. "So, where you headed? Car breakdown?" But Claire just stared at the road, her eyes unblinking, her face blank, like a mask. The radio kept cutting out, spitting bursts of static that sounded like voices, low, urgent, saying things Emily couldn't quite catch. Her skin prickled, goosebumps rising despite the heater. She glanced at Claire, and for a moment, her face seemed wrong. Her jaw was too sharp, her eyes too deep, like holes carved into her skull. "You okay?" Emily asked, her voice barely a whisper. Claire turned slowly, her lips curling into a faint, unnatural smile. "You shouldn't have stopped," she said. Emily's heart slammed against her ribs, her breath catching. She forced a nervous laugh, praying it was a bad joke. But Claire's eyes didn't laugh. They bored into her, unyielding, like they could see her soul. The air in the car grew thick, suffocating, like all the oxygen had been sucked out. Emily's hands trembled on the wheel, her eyes darting to the rearview mirror. For a split second, Claire's reflection wasn't there, just an empty seat, the rain visible through the window. She slammed on the brakes, tires screeching on the wet asphalt, and whipped around. The passenger seat was empty. The door hung wide open, rain pouring, in lashing the interior. Claire was gone. Emily screamed, her voice swallowed by the storm. Her hands shook so badly she could barely hold her phone to dial 911. She stammered to the operator, her words tumbling out, barely coherent. When the police arrived, their flashlights cutting through the rain, they searched the area for hours. But they found nothing. No footprints, no signs of anyone, not even a trace of mud on the road. Just Emily's car, alone on the highway, the passenger seat soaked, the door still open. They told her it was probably exhaustion, maybe a hallucination from the long shift, the storm playing tricks. But Emily knew what she saw, what she felt, the cold, the smell, the voice. Desperate for answers, Emily started asking around, talking to locals at a diner near the highway. An old man, his hands weathered, his eyes distant, told her a story that made her blood run cold. 10 years earlier, a woman named Claire Thompson died on that exact stretch of highway. She was hitchhiking home during a storm, trying to get to Millville, when a drunk driver swerved, hitting her so hard her body was unrecognizable, mangled in the mud. Locals say her spirit never left. She wanders the road on rainy nights, hitching rides with strangers, her cold hands reaching for the living. Some say she's looking for revenge, punishing those who stop. Others say she's searching for company, forever, dragging souls into the storm with her. Emily sold her car and moved to Columbus, vowing never to drive that road again. She avoids highways at night, especially when it rains, the sound of wipers enough to make her panic. But some nights, when the storm is loud, she hears a soft tap on her apartment window. Tap, 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 like fingers on glass. And a voice, faint and cold, whispers her name over and over. She doesn't look outside. She's too afraid of what's waiting in the rain, watching her, smiling that unnatural smile. That was just the beginning, and already the storm is closing in. If you're still here, brace yourself. The next story is darker, creepier, and it's going to claw at your soul. Don't turn away. The rain's only getting heavier. Story 2. The Thing in the Backyard. Our second story takes us to a quiet Seattle suburb, October 2020. Jason, a 32-year-old single dad, lived in a modest 2-story house with his 6-year-old daughter, Lily. It was a stormy night, the kind where the rain feels like it's trying to tear the world apart. Each drop a hammer against the roof, the wind howled, rattling the windows, and the power flickered, casting long, jagged shadows across the walls. Lily was tucked in bed, her stuffed bunny clutched tight, her small face pale. But she kept waking up, her voice trembling. "Daddy, something's outside," she whispered, her eyes wide with fear. Jason forced a smile, his heart aching for her. "It's just the storm, sweetheart," he said, smoothing her hair, tucking her in again. "Nothing's out there. Kids have big imaginations, right?" He closed her door, trying to believe his own words, but the house felt wrong, like the storm had brought something with it. As he walked downstairs, he heard it, a sound that wasn't the wind or the rain. It was heavy, deliberate, like something dragging through the mud in the backyard, slow and purposeful. His heart skipped, his breath catching in his throat. Jason grabbed a flashlight from the kitchen drawer, his hand steady but his mind racing. He told Lily to stay in bed, his voice firm, then crept to the back window, pulling the curtain aside with a trembling hand. The yard was a mess, mud churned up, the grass flattened, the swing set creaking like a dying animal. His flashlight beam swept across the chaos, and then it stopped. Something was crouched by the fence, hidden in the shadows. It was tall, too tall to be an animal, and its limbs were wrong, bent at angles that made his stomach lurch, like a spider trying to stand upright. Its head snapped toward the light, and its eyes, they glinted like wet glass, reflecting the beam back at him. Too large, too empty, too wrong. Jason stumbled back, his breath ragged, the flashlight shaking in his hand. The thing didn't move. It just watched, its head tilted at an impossible angle, like it was studying him. He locked the back door, double-checking the bolt, his hands shaking so badly he dropped the flashlight, its beam spinning across the floor. Lily started crying, her voice piercing the silence. "Daddy, the scary man's at my window." Jason ran to her room, his heart pounding, and yanked the curtains shut. But he saw it too. A shadow outside, impossibly tall, its limbs too long, its head pressed against the glass, rain sliding off it like it wasn't fully there, like it was part of the storm itself. Jason grabbed his phone to call 911, but the line was dead. No dial tone, just silence, like the storm had cut them off from the world. The power flickered, then cut out completely, plunging the house into darkness. The dragging sound grew louder, circling the house, joined by low guttural growls that vibrated in Jason's chest, like the thing was inside his bones. Something scratched at the back door. Slow, deliberate, like it was toying with them, savoring their fear. Jason scooped Lily up, her small body trembling, and hid in the upstairs closet, pulling the door shut. He held her tight, whispering that everything would be okay. But his voice cracked, betraying his terror. The noises didn't stop, the growls, the scratches, the heavy thuds. They went on for hours, each one closer, more deliberate, like the thing was searching for them. Just before dawn, the sound stopped. The rain slowed to a drizzle, and the power flickered back on, casting a weak, sickly glow through the house. Jason waited, his heart pounding, before daring to open the closet. Odor. The house was silent, but the air felt heavy, like something was still there, lingering in the corners, watching. He carried Lily downstairs, checking every room, every window. The back door was still locked, but the scratches were real. Deep claw marks gouged into the wood, too. High and too wide for any animal, some so deep they splintered the frame. In the yard, they found footprints, human-like, but massive, with elongated toes that curled unnaturally, like talons digging into the mud. The police arrived an hour later, their faces grim as they inspected the yard. They took photos of the marks, the footprints, but their explanation was weak. A bear, maybe, confused by the storm. But Jason knew better. No bear had eyes like that, limbs like that. Neighbors reported seeing a tall figure in the rain that night, slipping into the woods behind the subdivision, moving too fast, too silent. But no one could describe it clearly. It was too blurred, too wrong. Jason and Lily moved out the next week, staying with his sister until they could find a new home, far from that house, that yard, that thing. Lily stopped talking for days, her eyes wide and haunted, her small hands clutching her bunny like a lifeline. When she finally spoke, she described the scary man. A faceless thing with long bent limbs, its body twisting like it didn't belong in this world, its eyes glowing in the dark, never blinking. She still draws pictures of it, her crayons, smudging the page with black and red, her hands shaking as she whispers, "He's still out there." Jason burns the drawings, but they keep appearing, tucked under her pillow, in her backpack. Some say it's a creature drawn to storms, hunting when the rain hides its tracks, slipping between worlds. Others say it's something older, something that's always been there, waiting for the right night to strike. Jason doesn't care what it is. He just knows it's still out there, and the rain brings it closer, its eyes watching, waiting. Are you still with me? Good, because the next story will make your skin crawl, your heart race. Don't look behind you. The storm's not done with us yet. Story 3. The Woman in the Window in the fall of 2019. Sarah, a 29-year-old graphic designer, moved into a cheap apartment on Chicago's South Side. The building was a relic: crumbling brick, creaky floors, hallways that smelled of mildew and something sour like old blood. The rent was dirt cheap, a lifeline for Sarah, who was drowning in student debt and freelance gigs that barely paid. She ignored the flickering lights, the strange groans in the walls, the way the air felt heavy, like it was holding a secret. But one stormy night, that secret came knocking. Sarah was working late, her laptop casting a blue glow across her small bedroom. The rain was relentless, hammering the windows like it wanted to shatter them, the wind rattling the glass in its frame. She was focused, her headphones on, music drowning out the storm, when she noticed something odd. Her bedroom window was fogged up, streaked with condensation, like someone had been breathing on it. At first, she thought it was the cold outside, the storm playing tricks. But then she saw it, handprints on the glass, small and smeared like fingers pressing against it, from the outside. Sarah lived on the 5th floor. Sarah's heart raced, her headphones falling to the floor, the storm's roar flooding her ears. She grabbed a towel, her hands trembling, and wiped the glass, desperate to prove it was nothing. For a moment, there was only rain. The city lights blurred below, faint and distant. Then, a face appeared, pale, eyeless. Its mouth stretched into a jagged grin, rows of sharp, needle-like teeth glinting in the streetlight, scraping the glass as it moved, slow and deliberate. Sarah screamed, falling back onto her bed, her laptop crashing to the floor, its screen flickering. The face vanished, but the window rattled violently, like something was clawing, pounding, begging to get in. Sarah scrambled to her feet, her pulse pounding in her ears, her breath coming in gasps. She slammed the curtain shut, her hands shaking, so badly she tore the fabric, the rod clattering against the wall. She called her landlord, a gruff man who answered with a yawn, laughing it off. "Kids mess around in storms," he said, his voice dripping with dismissal. "Go back to bed." But Sarah wasn't convinced. She couldn't be. She barely slept, jumping at every sound, every creak, her eyes darting to the curtains, expecting them to move. The next night, the storm returned, and so did the face. It was closer now, its teeth leaving deep scratches on the glass, its eyeless socket staring straight through her, into her, like it knew her fears, her secrets. Sarah grabbed her phone, recording it with trembling hands, her breath hitching, as she whispered, "Please go away." The footage was shaky, the face barely visible, just a blurry shape in the rain. But its eyes, they burned through the screen, black and endless, like voids that swallowed light. She played it back, her hands shaking, and the video glitched, static cutting in, the face appearing closer each time, its teeth bared. Sarah showed the video to her neighbor, an elderly woman named Mrs. Kowalski, who lived across the hall. The old woman's face went pale, her hands clutching her rosary, trembling. "That's her," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "The woman who died here." Mrs. Kowalski told Sarah a story that chilled her to the bone. Decades earlier, a tenant was murdered in Sarah's apartment, her body found in the rain-soaked alley below, her face mutilated beyond recognition, her eyes gone, her mouth torn open. The killer was never caught, the case buried in police files, but locals said her spirit never left. She appears on stormy nights, her eyeless face watching, her teeth hungry for anyone who stays too long. Some say she's angry, seeking justice. Others say she's something else now, something not human, something that feeds on fear, scratching at windows, waiting for someone to let her in. Sarah moved out the next day, crashing on a friend's couch, her belongings stuffed in trash bags. She deleted the video, but the nightmares followed. Visions of that eyeless face, its teeth gleaming, its breath fogging the glass, closer each time. Sometimes when it rains, she hears scratching at her window, soft and insistent, like it's following her, tracking her. She doesn't look outside. She's too afraid of what's waiting in the storm, its grin wide, its eyes empty, its teeth ready. We're halfway through, and the stories are only getting creepier, darker, more sinister. Can you handle what's next? Let's find out. Story 4. The Vanishing Campers. In June 2015, 5 friends headed to Oregon's Mount Hood National Forest for a weekend camping trip. There was Mike, the group's fearless leader, always ready with a joke. Sarah, his girlfriend, the planner. Tom and Jess, a married couple who loved the outdoors. And Ethan, the quiet one, always watching, noticing things others missed. They were excited. Beer, s'mores, scary stories by the fire, a break from their stressful lives. But a storm rolled in, unexpected and brutal, turning the trails to mud, the air thick with dread, like the forest itself was holding its breath. By midnight, the rain was torrential, the wind shaking their tents like it wanted to rip them apart. The group huddled inside, their flashlights casting jittery shadows, their laughter forced, uneasy. They tried to keep the mood light, telling ghost stories, but the storm was too loud, too angry, drowning out their voices. Then, a scream tore through the night, sharp, human, and close, cutting through the rain like a knife. It wasn't the wind. It was real, raw, terrified. Mike grabbed a flashlight and bolted out, shouting that he'd check it out, his voice steady but his eyes wide. Sarah begged him to stay, her hands gripping his arm, but he shook her off, his beam swallowed by the rain. The others followed, pulling on boots and jackets, their hearts pounding, their breath visible in the cold. They shouted Mike's name, their voices drowned by the storm, the rain stinging their faces. After 10 minutes, they found his flashlight in the mud, still on, its beam pointing at nothing, the light flickering like it was dying. But Mike was gone. No footprints, no signs of a struggle, just the rain, washing everything away, erasing him. Ethan swore he saw something in the trees. A tall, thin figure, moving too fast, its limbs too long, bending in ways they shouldn't. But when they looked, it was gone, leaving only the sound of snapping branches, sharp and deliberate. The group searched for hours, their clothes soaked, their voices hoarse, their flashlights dimming. They marked the trail with glow sticks, hoping Mike would find his way back, their hands trembling as they tied them to branches. Jess found strange marks in the mud, long, thin scratches, like claws dragged across the earth. Too deep, too precise. Tom tried to call for help, but their phones had no signal, the screens flickering in the rain, glitching with static. The forest felt wrong, like it was watching them, closing in, the trees leaning closer, their branches clawing at the sky. By dawn, they stumbled back to camp, exhausted and terrified, and drove to a ranger station to call the police. The police arrived, their faces stern, calling it a hiking accident, blaming the storm, the mud, the darkness. But the friends weren't convinced. They told the rangers about the scratches, the figure Ethan saw, the scream that wasn't human. Locals whispered about a creature in the forest, something that hunts during storms, dragging victims into the darkness, its tracks erased by the rain. 2 years later, a hiker found Mike's backpack 20 miles away, torn to shreds, its contents scattered. His journal, his clothes, all soaked in mud, smelling of decay. His body was never recovered. Not a trace, not a bone. The surviving friends never went camping again. Sarah has panic attacks when it rains, hearing Mike's voice in the storm, calling her name, desperate, fading. Ethan moved across the country, but he says the figure followed him, a shadow in the rain, always just out of sight, its limbs bending, its eyes glinting. Jess and Tom divorced, unable to cope with the guilt, the nightmares, the questions. Some say the creature is still out there, waiting for the next storm to claim its prey, slipping through the trees, silent and unseen. The forest stays quiet now, too quiet, like it's waiting, watching, hungry. 3 stories left, and they're the darkest, most terrifying yet. Are you brave enough to keep going? Let's see. Story 5. The Rain-Soaked Stranger in March 2022. Tyler, a 22-year-old gas station clerk in rural Texas, was working the graveyard shift. It was 2 a.m., and the rain was coming down in sheets, turning the parking lot into a mirror of flickering neon, the light warping in the water. The station was dead. No customers, no cars, just Tyler and the hum of the coolers, their buzz like a heartbeat in the silence. He was half asleep, scrolling on his phone, the storm's drone lulling him, when the bell above the door chimed, sharp and jarring, like a scream in the dark. A man walked in, drenched from head to toe, his hooded jacket clinging to him like a shroud. Water pooled at his feet, spreading across the floor like ink, dark and unnatural. Tyler called out, "Hey, you okay?" His voice echoing in the empty store. The man didn't answer. He just stood there, silent, his head slightly bowed. Water, dripping from his hood, each drop loud in the silence. Tyler's skin prickled, a chill crawling up his spine. Something about the guy felt off, like he didn't belong in the light, like he was part of the storm itself. Tyler tried again, his voice unsteady, forcing a smile. "Need gas? A towel? You're soaked, man." The man slowly raised his head, and Tyler froze, his breath catching. His face was wrong, gray, almost translucent, like wet paper, with eyes too large, too black, like pools of ink that swallowed the light, reflecting nothing. His mouth twitched, and he whispered, "It's not safe here." His voice was low, rasping, like it came from somewhere deep underground, each word heavy, final. Then he turned and walked back into the rain, his footsteps silent, vanishing into the storm like he'd never been there, the bell jingling faintly as the door swung shut. Tyler's hand shook as he locked the door, his heart pounding so hard he thought it would burst. He checked the security footage, his fingers fumbling on the keyboard, but the tape was corrupted. Just static where the man should have been, like the camera couldn't see him, like he wasn't real. The static pulsed, and for a moment, Tyler swore he saw those black eyes staring back, unblinking, through the screen. He called his boss, his voice trembling, and was told to close early and go home. The next day, a coworker, an older woman who'd worked there for years, told him something that made his blood run cold. The gas station was built on an old burial ground, disturbed during construction, the graves unmarked, forgotten. Locals said the rain wakes the spirits, angry and restless, seeking the living, their gray faces watching, their voices warning, or luring. Tyler quit that night, moving back to his parents' house, his bags packed in a frenzy. He doesn't work night shifts anymore, and he avoids gas stations when it rains. The neon lights too much like those flickering eyes, but he still sees that face in his dreams. Gray, eyeless, watching from the shadows, its mouth moving, whispering words he can't hear. Sometimes when the rain is heavy, he hears a faint jingle, like a bell, coming from nowhere, echoing in the dark. He doesn't answer it. He's too afraid of who's waiting, standing in the rain, watching him. We're almost at the end, but the worst is yet to come. The storm is closing in, and the next story will shake you to your core. Can you handle it? Let's find out. Story 6. The Child in the Storm. October 2018, Rachel, a 34-year-old teacher, was driving through a small town in Maine during a brutal storm. The rain was so thick her wipers couldn't keep up. The road a blur of water and light. The world reduced to streaks of gray. She was tired, her eyes burning from a long day of grading papers, parent meetings, her mind foggy. She just wanted to get home to her apartment, to a hot shower, a warm bed. Then her headlights caught something. A child, maybe 8 years old, standing in the middle of the road, soaked and shivering, her dress clinging to her small frame, her hair plastered to her face. Rachel slammed on the brakes, her car skidding on the wet pavement, her heart pounding. The child didn't move, just stood there, head bowed, water streaming off her like a statue, untouched by the wind. Rachel's heart broke. She couldn't leave a kid out in this, alone, defenseless. She rolled down her window, rain spitting. Inside, soaking her arm, and called out, "Sweetie, are you okay? Where's your mom? Come here, let's get you warm." The child slowly raised her head, and Rachel's blood ran cold. Her face was pale, her eyes empty, like black holes that swallowed the light. No pupils, no life. She pointed at Rachel, her small hand trembling, her finger steady, and whispered, "You're next." Rachel screamed, her foot slamming the gas pedal, her tires spinning on the wet road. The car lurched forward, the child's face burned into her mind, those empty eyes following her. When she looked in the rearview mirror, the child was gone, just rain and darkness, the road empty. Her hands shook as she drove straight to the police station, her breath coming in gasps, her vision blurred with tears. She stumbled inside, her clothes soaked, her words tumbling out, barely coherent. The officers listened, their faces grim, but they found no missing children in the area, no reports of a girl matching her description. One officer, an older man with tired eyes, pulled Rachel aside and showed her an old newspaper clipping, his hands steady but his voice low. The clipping was yellowed, dated 20 years earlier. It told of a girl, 8 years old, who drowned in a flood. On that exact road, her small body swept away by the current, found the next day tangled in roots, her face frozen in a scream, her hands clutching the mud. The town mourned, but the story faded, buried in time. Locals said her spirit never left, appearing during storms, her empty eyes watching, her finger pointing, warning people, or marking them for something worse. The officer warned Rachel to be careful, his voice heavy. "She doesn't just appear," he said. "She chooses." Rachel moved to a new town, far from Maine. Her apartment abandoned, her life packed into a single suitcase. But the nightmares followed, relentless, vivid. Visions of the girl standing at her window, dripping wet, her empty, eyes staring, her finger pointing, her lips moving, whispering, "You're next." Sometimes when it rains, Rachel hears a child's voice, soft and cold, whispering her name from the darkness, growing closer. She doesn't drive at night anymore, especially not in the rain, the sound of wipers enough to make her sob. She's too afraid of who she might see standing in the road, pointing, waiting, her eyes black, her voice a promise. One final story. This one's the scariest, the darkest, the one that'll stay with you long after the rain stops. Are you ready? Let's finish this. Story 7. The House That Weeps In. The spring of 2023, Mark and Lisa, a young couple in their late 20s, bought a fixer-upper in rural Virginia. It was a big old house, sagging with age, its paint peeling like dead skin, its eaves drooping like weary shoulders. The price was a steal, almost too good to be true, a dream for two people starting over. They ignored the realtor's nervous glances, the way she fumbled her keys, the way the neighbors crossed the street to avoid the property. Their eyes averted. Mark and Lisa were excited, dreaming of renovations, of building a life together, of turning the house into a home. But their first night, a storm hit, and the house woke up, its secrets spilling out with the rain. The rain was brutal, shaking the walls, rattling the windows like it wanted to break in, the wind screaming through the trees. Mark and Lisa were unpacking in the living room, their boxes scattered across the dusty floor, their laughter echoing, trying to drown out the storm. Then they noticed a leak in the ceiling, water dripping onto the hardwood, slow and steady, pooling in the cracks. But it wasn't clear. It was red, thick and warm, like blood, its surface shimmering in the lamplight. Lisa gagged, stepping back, her eyes wide, her hand over her mouth. "It's just rust," Mark said, his voice uncertain, his eyes darting to the ceiling. But the smell was unmistakable, metallic, alive, like a slaughterhouse, heavy in the air. Mark climbed into the attic to check the pipes, his flashlight cutting through the darkness, his breath visible in the cold. But there were no pipes leaking, just cobwebs, dust, and a strange, heavy silence that pressed against him, like the air was alive, watching. He found something else, though. An old water-damaged photo tucked behind a beam, its edges curling. It showed a family, mother, father, 3 children, standing in front of the house, their faces blurred, their eyes dark smudges. On the back, in faded ink, were the words, "They never leave." Mark's heart raced, his hands shaking as he shoved it in his pocket, climbing back down, his flashlight flickering, the shadows closing in. That night, the noises started. Heavy footsteps paced the attic, slow and deliberate, shaking the ceiling, dust drifting down. Lisa woke up at 3 a.m., her breath catching, her body frozen. The bedroom door was open, and a shadow stood in the hallway, tall, eyeless, its head tilted at an unnatural angle, its limbs too long, too thin. She screamed, waking Mark, but the shadow was gone, the hallway empty, the air cold and heavy. The next day, the leaks spread, staining the walls, pooling in corners, the red liquid moving, shifting, like it was alive. Objects moved on their own, keys vanishing, chairs shifting, picture frames falling, their glass shattering, and the red drips formed words on the living room wall, jagged and uneven. "Get out!" Mark and Lisa were terrified, their sleep fractured, their nerves raw. They couldn't afford to leave, their savings drained by the purchase. But they couldn't stay like this. They called a paranormal investigator, a grizzled man named Paul, his face lined, his eyes sharp, carrying a duffel bag of cameras, EMF meters, and a Bible. He arrived at dusk, the storm still raging, and set up in the living room, his equipment humming, his voice calm but firm. But by midnight he was shaken, his hands trembling, his cameras catching nothing but static, the meters spiking randomly, screaming in the silence. The air grew so heavy he could barely breathe, like the house was pressing down on him, suffocating him. At 3 a.m., he fled, his equipment abandoned, his voice trembling as he shouted, "The house is alive, it's angry, and it's feeding on the storm." Paul refused to return, but he dug into the house's history, his research frantic, his emails. To Mark and Lisa, urgent. He found something chilling. In the 1800s, a family lived there, a mother, father, and 3 children. Their lives simple, their home sturdy. A flood swept through the valley, destroying the house, killing them all. The water so fierce it tore the foundation apart. Their bodies were never found. Not a trace. Not a bone. Like the earth swallowed them. The house was rebuilt, but it was never the same. Tenants reported noises, shadows, red leaks. Their dreams haunted. Their lives unraveling. Most left within. Weeks, some within days, their stories buried, forgotten. Paul warned Mark and Lisa to leave before the house claimed them too, his voice heavy with fear. "It's not just ghosts," he said. "It's the house. It wants you." Mark and Lisa left the next day, abandoning everything. Clothes, furniture, their dreams of a new life, their boxes still unpacked. They moved to a new state, renting a small apartment. Their savings gone, their lives fractured, but the nightmares followed. Relentless. Vivid. Lisa sees the shadow in every storm, its eyeless face watching her, its long fingers reaching, scraping at her mind. Mark hears footsteps when it rains, pacing above him, heavy and deliberate, shaking the ceiling. The house is still for sale, untouched, its windows dark, its walls weeping. Locals call it the house that weeps, and they say the rain brings its ghosts, its hunger, its anger, forever. And there you have it. 7 true horror stories that prove the rain hides things we're not meant to see, things that watch, wait, and hunger. These tales have haunted me, and I know they're haunting you too, creeping into your thoughts, your dreams. Which one got under your skin? Made you check the locks, the windows? Drop it in the comments, and share your own rainy night terrors. I read every single one, and I want to know what's out there, what you've seen. If you loved this video, smash that like button and subscribe for more spine-chilling tales every day. And if you're watching this alone, maybe check your windows. The rain's still falling, and something might be out there, watching, waiting, its eyes glinting in the dark. Until next time, stay dry and stay scared.